Today I'm here to talk to you about a growing problem in our society: body image. According to a 2009 study at the University of Central Florida, girls started to be concerned about their size as early as 3 years old. 3. Once they reach 9 or 10, 40% of them have tried dieting. And at 17, 78% of all girls are still unhappy with their body image. Why do girls constantly believe that they need to look like the girls in magazines? Women come in many shapes and sizes, but the media only focuses on one of them. Consequently, girls see the one shape as the perfect shape that they should emulate. However, the definition of the best shape changes about each decade, so the perfect shape one day is different than the perfect shape the next. To prove this, let's compare and contrast the ideal woman through the 20th century. When we see how the desired woman's body shape changes throughout the 20th century alone, we realize that every body is beautiful. Nobody should feel inadequate due to their shape. On a side note, since we'll be discussing body measurements in the video, and most people have no idea what theirs are, here are mine for reference. Not ashamed. Invented by Charles Dana Gibson in the 1890s, this new woman was in essence the first Barbie doll. She could openly participate in society and could participate in athletics because of her new sport-friendly clothing. Furthermore, the Gibson girl was the first woman to exert dominance in her relationship, but it wasn't in the feminist act like a man way. By embracing her curvaceous figure and, quote, objectifying herself, she could manipulate men with her beauty, thereby getting what she wanted. A prime example of this look would be Camille Clifford, who corseted her figure until her waist was only 18 inches around. Her, along with other icons Irene Langhorne and Evelyn Nesbit, helped establish the new, thin, willowy, and simple style for a woman, and actually got several complaints for creating a, quote, unreasonably thin ideal for women, because we wouldn't want them to blow over in the wind. But after World War I and the passing of the 19th Amendment, the ideal body changed drastically. The 1920s ushered in a new ideal body shape. This one ruler-like and straight instead of the corseted Gibson look so popular before. Because of this change, women who were once the sex symbols of the time lost popularity. The fashion had changed to flatter the straighter bodies, and the Gibson girls lost the attractiveness they once had. New actresses that came in had much straighter measurements. Clara Bow, for example, had measurements of 32, 24.5, 35, much different than Clifford's 18-inch waist measurements. Other examples of the day included Louise Brooks and even Miss America, who had measurements of 34, 26.5, 37. For the first time, the boyish-shaped body was celebrated because it allowed, according to them, the freedom to do more. To help attain this liberating ruler look, old corsets were replaced with the new supposedly less restricting undergarments, such as the Symington side lacer, that bound both your chests and hips instead of just your waist, because binding two body parts is so much more liberating than binding one body part. The 1930s is generally viewed as the awkward transition phase between fashion of the 1920s and fashion of the 1940s. However, they too had their own ideas of the ideal woman. What was popular during the Depression were gentle curves that tended to be more pear-like in their shape. That is, they were wider on the bottom than they were on top. With the invention of the girdle and other synthetic elastic shapewear, the smaller waist came back into style, though still larger than the wasp waist of the 1900s. The fashion flattered the pear-shaped bodies with dresses that had long, loose, conservative skirts and structured tops. These slight, gentle curves of the 1930s are exemplified through the looks of Dolores Del Rio at 5'3" with measures 33, 25, 36, Thelma Todd with 33, 27, 36, and Jean Harlow at 34, 25, 36. A woman of the 30s desired to look domestic and soft, but the ideal changed yet again in the 1940s.
All the day long, whether rain or shine, she's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the riveter.
With the U.S. involvement in World War II, the woman began to be called to work in factories and become more active in her life than just daily housework. As a result, the ideal woman became fitter and smaller, yet still maintaining a decent hourglass shape, because during wartime any extra weight was a form of indulgence, which was greatly frowned upon in the rationing time. Rationing also influenced the ideal shape of a woman by limiting the size clothing could be. For example, dresses could be no longer than knee length and no bigger around than 198 centimeters. Obviously, if your clothes could only legally be sold at a certain width, then there would be a greater pressure to be a certain size. The 1940s was the first time there was a significant focus upon body image. Whereas before, body image was more general guidelines for glamour, it was now strict requirements for fun and popularity. Because popularity is definitely the most important thing in a girl's life.
Why, it does work. You will be prettier. You will be more popular.
The desirable look was broad shoulders, hence the increase in the use of shoulder pads, and a petite, fit figure. Icons of this look were Rita Hayworth at 36-24-36 and Jean Tierney at 34-25-36. Women desired a small hourglass shape, and they were willing to try really weird exercise machines and go on strict diets for it.
All the things you want begin with a balanced diet. So watch it, girls.
How to get the new look, even if Mother Nature forgot to give you the right figure for it. At a London fashion house, we asked for a demonstration. First, it's the straitjacket for that figure-of-8 appearance. The French call it a guépari, meaning wasp. The Americans a cinch. We know they're just old-fashioned stays. Next come the shoulders and hips, if you've still got a breath of air left. Fitted pads make Madame look like a destroyer having its armor plating laid. But these are the armaments of beauty. British models have slimmed for years to be a la mode. Now they just haven't got what the new look takes. A last look at the superstructure before we show you a new look dress by Richards in utility material. Think it would look good on you?
With the end of World War II came the re-establishment of domestic women in homes instead of in the workforce. As a result, the fit frame of the 1940s woman was replaced with an overly exaggerated hourglass shape, similar to the Gibson era. Icons of this era were women such as Betty Page with 36-23-36 measurements, Betty Brosmer with 38-18-36 measurements, and Marilyn Monroe, who, contrary to popular belief, was not plus size according to today's standards. Her measurements were only 36-22-36. In this time period, women became overly obsessed with their body image and did everything they could to manipulate it into the hourglass shape. Corsets were revived with boning similar to those of the 1900s, and now wore shoulder and hip pads to add to their chest and hip size. However, around the mid-50s, a second look came into style, the waif look. The creator of this look was Audrey Hepburn, who at 5'7" weighed only 103 pounds with measurements of 33-20-34. This new straight look coexisted with the hourglass shape for the remainder of the 50s and the first years of the 60s, but by the mid-60s, the extreme ruler replaced the hourglass completely. The 60s was a decade of revolutions and movements. One such movement is one we all know pleasantly today as feminism. With the popularity of the domestic woman of the 1950s, a curvier shape was celebrated, but in the 1960s, with women such as Betty Friedan and her feminine mystique, a movement away from that domesticity began. Models such as Twiggy, who stood at 5'6", weighing only 91 pounds with measurements of 32-23-32, helped set a new standard for women. The ruler-shaped body was associated with independence, so women became obsessed with trying to look like models who weighed 8% less than the average American woman. Adding to the thin craze was the invention of the Barbie doll in 1961 as the role model of a girl, who was ironically based off of a German gag doll. In her 1965 pajama party set, Barbie came with a scale set permanently to 110 pounds and a magazine titled How to Lose Weight, which could easily be answered by flipping it over and reading the "Don't Eat" clearly printed on the back of it. If put to normal proportions, the first Barbie's measurements would have been at 36-24-33. Not that crazy, except for she had also had to have stood at 6'3". The small bodies in the media led to the emergence of anorexia nervosa and other eating disorders popularized later on in the 70s. The waif look for a woman dominated until the 2000s, with only minor variations on it. With the 1970s and 80s came the introduction of the athletic woman, The underweight ideal of the 1960s was met with a new craze to be in shape, and now women work to be in extreme shape as well as thin. New insane workout routines came out to keep you toned.
Round the world and lift, lift, and lift. Round the world, you got it, nice and tall. High. Exit!
Also, dangerous diets, like liquid protein diets, cause rapid weight loss and even cause several deaths. With the 1990s, a new variation of the straight look formed, the apple shape, which meant that the woman's measurements were bigger on top than in the rest of her body. Plastic surgeries rose in popularity as women strove to increase their bust and decrease the rest of their body size. Women like Pamela Anderson with measures of 39, 24, 34 made magazine covers, further glorifying this ideal. Consequently, models began to weigh 23% less than the average American woman, like Kate Moss with her measurements of 34, 23, 35 at 5'7", weighing only 120 pounds. And anorexia doubled in teens between the 60s and 90s. Body dissatisfaction skyrocketed and remains a prevalent part of our culture still. What does this mean for girls today? Women need to stop fretting about their body shape, but this is not an excuse to eat all the Krispy Kremes you want. I know, distressing. There is a difference between natural body shape and being unhealthy. Many girls mistake their natural body shape with being too fat or too thin. If they are not the ruler ideal today, they think they're too fat. But what about a girl in the 1940s? If she had the ideal body shape of the 1920s, she would have thought she was too thin instead of recognizing her natural body shape. You can be healthy and fit in any shape, as long as you take care of your body. Focus on how to make yourself look like women in magazines, because you were born with a certain body type. Embrace it.
I am beautiful, no matter what they say. Words can't bring me down.
That's all.